The doors opened, and for one impossible second, Sophia forgot how to breathe. Have you ever had a moment so wrong, so completely out of place, that your body understands it before your mind does? That was her. White dress, champagne lights, 100 smiling faces turned toward the dance floor, and there, framed in the entrance of her wedding reception like they had every right to be there, stood the 3 people she had spent years learning how to live without. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Her mother first. Elena Ramirez, 52, wearing a dark blue dress and the same tight expression she always wore when she wanted to look offended before anyone had even spoken. Behind her was Carlos, Sophia's father, stiff-backed and quiet, almost scanning the room like he was evaluating it. And right beside him, hands in his pockets like this was all one big inconvenience, stood Mateo, Sophia's older brother, 30, still carrying that same casual arrogance that had followed him through childhood and into adulthood. For a second, the music kept playing. For a second, people still laughed. For a second, Sophia stood in the center of the room with a champagne glass in one hand and Daniel's fingers loosely brushing hers, and all she could think was, no, not here. Then her mother smiled, not warmly, not nervously, just that small, practiced smile people use when they think they can glide over history without paying for it. "Sweetheart," Elena said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear, "we came." Sophia didn't answer. "Because what exactly do you say to people who taught you? Before you were even old enough to drive, that home could have walls and a roof and dinner on the table, and still have no room for you?" That was the thing no one in this room understood yet. Not really. Her bridal party knew she was estranged from her parents. Daniel knew the cleaner version, the version she had been able to say out loud without hearing how ugly it sounded. But the truth? The truth was so petty, so mean, so strangely ordinary that it almost sounded unreal. No dramatic screaming match. No one thrown out into the street. No single explosion people could point to and say, "Ah, that's when the family broke." It had been smaller than that. Colder. A chair, a dinner table, a doorway. Earlier that morning, when Sophia was getting ready, Lila had asked the question everyone always asked eventually. "So, your parents really aren't coming?" The room had gone just a little too quiet after that. Curling irons still hissed, makeup brushes still moved. Someone zipped a garment bag in the corner, but everybody had heard it. Sophia had been sitting in front of the mirror in a silk robe, one earring already in, the other still resting on the counter. She'd looked at her reflection instead of at Lila. "No," she said, "they won't be there." Simple, clean, final. But even then, even with all the careful planning and the passwords with the venue and the private guest list and the months of silence, something in her had never fully relaxed. Maybe because people like Elena never believed doors were truly closed to them. Maybe because Mateo had texted 2 months ago from a number she didn't know. "Heard you're getting married." Oh, no congratulations, no apology, just information used like a key testing a lock. Sophia never replied. Then another message came days later. "Where is it?" She blocked that number too. Daniel had seen her face tighten when the screen lit up. "Do you think they know anything?" he'd asked. She had locked the phone and set it face down. No. But that wasn't completely true. What she meant was, they shouldn't. What she feared was, they'll try anyway. And now here they were, at her wedding. At the one table she had built from scratch out of years of humiliation, second jobs, cheap apartments, ignored birthdays, swallowed tears, and one stubborn refusal to keep begging people to love her correctly. Daniel leaned closer. "Sophia," he murmured, voice low and steady. "Do you want me to handle this?" She finally moved. Just one step forward, then another. The room was noticing now. The music faltered. Nearby conversations thinned out into silence. Her mother's smile twitched as if she had expected tears, maybe even gratitude, as if she had imagined herself being welcomed. Instead, Sophia stopped a few feet away and looked directly at the woman who had once pointed past the kitchen and told her to eat outside. Her pulse was pounding now, but her voice, when it came, was quiet. Too quiet. "Who invited you?" And the second Mateo smirked, Sophia understood something that made the night tilt under her feet. They hadn't just shown up. Someone had helped them get in. They told me there was no seat for me. And the crazy part? I believed them. Let me take you back. Sophia was 12 years old the first time it happened. The moment that didn't look like much from the outside, but somehow rewired everything on the inside. It was a normal afternoon, or at least, it started that way. She had walked home from school with her backpack bouncing lightly against her shoulders, her fingers gripping a folded paper so tightly it had already started to crease. She had been chosen, out of her entire class, for a regional writing competition. Not just participation, selection, recognition. At 12, that kind of thing feels enormous. She had rehearsed what she was going to say all the way home. "Mom, guess what? Dad, you won't believe this. Mateo, I actually beat everyone." She pushed the front door open, already smiling. "I'm home." The smell of food hit her first. Something warm, something good. Garlic. Oh, maybe chicken. Plates clinking softly. They were already eating. That was unusual. Dinner was usually later and always together. Or at least that's what Sophia still believed back then, that together meant something consistent. She stepped into the dining room and stopped. There were 4 plates on the table. Her mom, her dad, Mateo, and someone else. Mateo's friend, Diego, sat in Sophia's usual chair, laughing at something Mateo had just said, completely at ease. Like he belonged there. Sophia blinked, adjusting. "Okay, fine. Guests happen." She shifted her backpack off her shoulder and smiled, holding up the paper slightly. "Hey, where do I sit?" Her mom didn't look up, not even a glance. "There's no space," Elena said, cutting into her food. "Go sit outside." There was a pause. Oh, the kind where your brain scrambles to interpret what you just heard. Sophia let out a small, confused laugh. "Wait, what?" Still nothing. No eye contact, no correction. Mateo leaned back slightly, reaching for something on the table, her fork, actually, and said casually, "Just eat outside, Soph. It's not a big deal." Her dad took a sip of his drink, didn't say a word, didn't move his chair, didn't offer his seat. Nothing. And this is the moment, this tiny, almost invisible moment, where something shifts. Because Sophia stood there, holding that paper, still waiting for someone to fix it, waiting for someone to say, "No, of course not, sit down," waiting for it to become a joke. It didn't. Her mother finally glanced up, just briefly, her expression flat. "We already set the table." "Don't make it a problem." "Don't make it a problem." Not, "We'll fix it." Not, "We forgot." Not even, "Sorry." Just, "Don't be inconvenient." Sophia swallowed. The excitement she had carried home with her, the words, the story, the moment she thought they'd be proud, started shrinking inside her chest. "Oh," she said quietly, then softer. "Okay." Mateo slid fully into her chair, already mid-conversation with Diego again. Just like that, replaced, seamlessly. Her mom stood up briefly, grabbed a plate, and without ceremony handed it to Sophia like she was passing something through a drive-through window. "Here." No apology, no explanation. Sophia took it and walked out. The porch was colder than she expected. The air had that early evening bite, the kind that creeps under your sleeves if you sit still too long. She lowered herself onto the steps, balancing the plate carefully on her knees. Inside, through the thin screen door, she could hear everything. Forks scraping, glasses clinking, laughter, real laughter. Not the polite kind, not the forced kind. The kind people have when they feel comfortable, when they feel like they belong exactly where they are. She took a bite of her food. It tasted fine. That was almost worse, because nothing about the situation looked dramatic. No one had yelled. No one had insulted her directly. If you described it to someone else, it might even sound small. Oh, they just didn't have space. It happens. Except it didn't feel small. It felt precise, like something had been measured, and she didn't make the cut. Sophia stared at the door, half expecting it to open, for her dad to step out and say, "Hey, I come back in." For her mom to realize what she'd done, for Mateo to at least notice. No one came. No one even looked. She sat there, listening to them eat, laugh, exist, without her. And after a while, she stopped waiting. She adjusted the plate on her lap, took another bite, and whispered to no one, "Okay." That was the moment. Not loud, not explosive, but something inside her shifted quietly into place. Because that night didn't end with an apology. It didn't end with a correction. It ended with a pattern beginning. And the next time it happened, it wasn't going to feel like a mistake. It was going to feel intentional. Once is an accident, twice is a pattern, so what do you call it when it never stops? That's the question Sophia didn't know how to ask back then, because after that night, nothing exploded. No confrontation, no dramatic fallout, just a quiet shift, subtle, constant, easy to miss if you weren't the one living it. At first, she told herself it didn't matter. People ate outside sometimes, families had weird moments, Mateo had a guest over. It was fine, except it kept happening. Not the exact same thing, but versions of it. Softer, quieter, repeated. Her 13th birthday? Forgotten until 9 p.m. when her mom said, "Oh, we'll do something this weekend," and never did. Mateo's birthday that same year? A full dinner, decorations, a cake with his name spelled perfectly in frosting. Sophia noticed. Of course she did. But every time she almost said something, there was always a reason ready for her. "We've been busy. Don't be dramatic. It's not a big deal." So she learned to shrink her reactions before they could be dismissed. At school, things were different. Teachers praised her. Friends listened when she spoke. When she won things, people clapped. At home? Silence. At 14, she placed first in a district writing competition, the same one she had tried to tell them about that night on the porch. This time, she didn't even mention it beforehand. She just brought home the certificate. She left it on the kitchen counter, right in the center. It stayed there for 3 days. No one said a word. On the 4th day, it disappeared. She never found out who threw it away. "Did you see it?" she finally asked her mom, trying to sound casual. Elena frowned slightly, distracted. "See what?" And that was it. Gone, like it never happened. But the real breaking point? That came at 17. Because at 17, Sophia still hadn't given up. Not completely. There was still a part of her, smaller now, quieter, but still there, still hoping that maybe one big moment would change everything. And she got one. An acceptance letter. A good university. Not just good, competitive. The kind people worked years for. The kind that meant something. She opened it alone in her room, read it twice, then a third time. Her hands were shaking. This was it. This was her moment. She walked into the living room, letter in hand. "They accepted me." Her dad glanced up from the TV. "Accepted you where?" she told him. Her mom listened from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. There was a pause. Not a long one. Just long enough for hope to rise. And then drop. "How are you going to pay for it?" her mom asked. No smile, no congratulations, just logistics. Sophia blinked. I can apply for scholarships. I already started," her dad cut in. "We can't help you with that." Flat. Final. Across the room, Mateo tossed his car keys onto the table. New keys, new car, a gift from their parents just a week earlier. "Congrats, I guess," he muttered, barely looking at her. And something about that moment, about standing there, holding proof that she had built something on her own, only to have it reduced to a problem. Something inside her snapped. Not loudly, not visibly, but completely. "Why?" she asked. The words slipped out before she could stop it. Her parents looked at her. "Why what?" her mom said. Sophia's grip tightened around the letter. "Why does he get everything? And I get nothing. There it was. Years of silence condensed into one question. The room stilled. Her father sighed, not annoyed, not angry, just tired. Because he needs us more. That was the answer. Simple, clean, devastating. Sophia felt something hollow open up inside her chest. "And I don't?" she asked. No one answered, because the silence was the answer. That night, she didn't cry. That's the part that mattered. She sat on her bed, the acceptance letter folded neatly beside her, and stared at the wall for a long time. No tears, no anger, just clarity. She wasn't overlooked, she wasn't forgotten, she had been assessed and found unnecessary. So she made a decision, quietly, just like everything else. She packed a bag, clothes, documents, the letter. She walked past the living room. The TV was still on. Her parents didn't stop her, didn't ask where she was going, didn't even look. At the door, she paused, just for a second, waiting. One last time. Nothing. So she opened it and left. "I thought that would be the moment they realized what they lost," Sophia would later say. But the truth? They didn't call that night, or the next day, or the next week. And slowly, painfully, she realized something even worse than being pushed out. They hadn't even noticed she was gone. They never called, not once. So tell me, what kind of family notices you only when there's something to gain? Years passed. Not dramatically, not all at once. Just one decision stacked on top of another until Sophia's life no longer had room for the people she used to call home. At first, it was survival. She slept on a friend's couch for 3 months, picked up shifts wherever she could, cafes, retail, late-night cleaning jobs. She learned quickly how to stretch money, how to stay quiet when landlords asked questions, how to keep moving forward without looking back too often. College wasn't easy. It wasn't the version she imagined at 12, sitting outside with a plate on her lap. There were no proud parents in the audience, no one calling to check in, but she stayed. Because leaving had already taught her one thing: no one was coming to fix her life for her. So she built it, piece by piece. And somewhere in the middle of all that, between double shifts and overdue assignments and nights where sleep felt optional, she met Daniel Brooks, 29, calm where she was guarded, steady where she had learned to expect instability. He didn't ask too many questions at first, but he noticed things, like how Sophia hesitated when people talked about family holidays, how she changed the subject when someone mentioned parents, how she never, ever went home. "You don't talk about them," he said once, gently. Sophia shrugged. "There's nothing to say." That wasn't entirely true, but it was the version she could live with. Over time, Daniel became her constant. Not loud, not overwhelming, just present. The kind of presence that didn't demand anything but made space for everything. And when he proposed, it wasn't dramatic, just honest. "I know your life hasn't been easy," he said, holding her hands, "but I want to be part of what comes next." She said yes, not because everything was perfect, but because for the first time it didn't have to be. The wedding planning started soon after, and Sophia was careful, very careful. Guest list locked down, venue details restricted, passwords with vendors, no public posts with locations. Because even if her family had been silent for years, she didn't trust that silence. And then, one night, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Almost. "We heard you're getting married." No name, no greeting. But she knew exactly who it was. Her chest tightened, not with excitement, not with fear exactly, but something colder. Recognition. She stared at the message for a long time before locking her phone. She didn't reply. The next message came 2 days later. "Where is it?" No punctuation, no attempt to soften it, just a question that felt more like a demand. She blocked the number. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. Because a week later, Lila mentioned something strange while they were finalizing details. "Hey, quick question," she said casually, flipping through her notes. "Did you ask someone to call the venue earlier this week?" Sophia frowned. No, why? Lila hesitated. Someone called pretending to be part of your planning team. They asked to confirm timing, guest count, stuff like that. A pause. They had your full name, Lila added. Sounded confident. Sophia felt it then. That quiet, creeping realization. Like a door she had locked years ago had just been tested from the outside. Did they get anything? She asked. Not much, Lila said quickly. The coordinator didn't give details without the password, but still, it was weird. Weird. That was one word for it. Sophia nodded slowly, but her mind was already moving ahead, connecting pieces. Unknown number, questions, access attempts. Daniel noticed the shift in her expression later that night. Do they know where the wedding is? He asked. Sophia shook her head. No. Then, after a beat, I didn't tell them anything. But as the wedding day approached, something didn't sit right. Because people who had ignored her for years, suddenly showing interest? That wasn't concern. That was intent. And now? Standing in the middle of her reception, watching her mother step further into the room like she belonged there. Watching Mateo glance around, already assessing, already calculating. Watching her father remain silent, as always. Sophia understood something with absolute clarity. They hadn't come to reconnect. They hadn't come to apologize. They had come because they believed they still had access, because in their minds, she was still the girl who would stand in the doorway and wait to be told where she was allowed to exist. Her grip tightened slightly around her glass. Her voice, when it came, was steady. Who invited you? Mateo smirked. Just slightly, just enough. And in that moment, Sophia realized the truth wasn't just that they had shown up uninvited, it was that someone had made sure they could. Who invited you? The question didn't echo, but it didn't need to. The entire room felt it anyway. Music had stopped completely now. Conversations had dissolved into whispers. Every eye, every subtle turn of a head, every held breath, it all pointed to the same place, Sophia, and the three people standing where they didn't belong. Her mother's smile flickered, just slightly, like a crack forming in something carefully maintained. Elena Ramirez doesn't wait for invitations, she said lightly, brushing invisible lint from her dress. We're your parents. Sophia didn't move, didn't blink. Exactly, she replied, which is why you weren't invited. That landed. Not loudly, not dramatically, but heavily. A ripple passed through the guests, confusion sharpening into understanding. Behind Sophia, Daniel stepped closer, not in front of her, not to take over, but beside her. Present, solid. A quiet statement. You're not alone. Elena's expression tightened. You're really going to do this? In front of everyone? Sophia tilted her head slightly. You mean like you did? A beat. Her mother frowned. Say, I don't know what you're talking about. And that, right there, that was the moment the past stopped being something Sophia carried alone, because now it had an audience. Sophia let out a small breath. Not shaky, not emotional, just measured. When I was 12, she began, her voice calm but cutting through the silence. You told me to sit outside because there wasn't space for me at the table. Elena rolled her eyes slightly. That was years ago. You gave my seat to Mateo's friend, Sophia continued, not raising her voice, not letting her finish. You handed me a plate and told me not to make it a problem. Silence. Real silence now. Even Mateo shifted slightly, uncomfortable, not guilty, just irritated. That's what this is about? He muttered. Seriously? Sophia looked at him, and for the first time, there was no hesitation in her expression. No, she said, that's where it started. That distinction mattered, because this wasn't about one dinner, it was about everything that followed. The birthdays you forgot, the competitions you ignored, the day I got into college and you asked how I'd pay for it instead of saying congratulations. Her father looked down slightly. Didn't deny it, didn't defend it, just absorbed it. Sophia took one step forward. And the night I left, she added quietly, You didn't even notice. That one lingered, longer than the others, because there was no way to reframe it. No excuse that sounded reasonable out loud. Elena's composure started to crack. We didn't think you were serious, she snapped. You were always independent. You didn't need us like Matteo did. There it was again. The same logic, the same justification, untouched by time. Sophia nodded slowly. I know, she said. That's exactly the problem. A pause. Then, finally, the question that had been building since the doors opened. So, I'll ask you again. Who invited you? This time, it wasn't rhetorical. Lila stepped forward slightly from the side, glancing between Sophia and the family. The venue got a call last week, she said carefully. Someone pretending to be part of the planning team. All eyes shifted to Matteo. He exhaled, annoyed at the attention. What? He said. She wasn't answering. We needed the details. Needed, not wanted, not hoped for, needed. Sophia let out a quiet, humorless laugh. You needed to come to my wedding? Matteo shrugged. It's a nice place. Big event. People here. Connections, probably. Why wouldn't we come? And there it was. Not love, not regret, opportunity, the final piece. They hadn't come for her. They had come for what she had built. The room shifted again, but this time something changed in the energy. Guests weren't confused anymore. They understood, and more importantly, they were watching. Elena straightened, trying to recover control. We're still your family, she insisted. You can't just shut us out like this. Sophia met her gaze, completely steady. Yes, she said. I can. No hesitation, no apology, just truth. Then she turned slightly, catching the eye of the venue coordinator who had been waiting quietly at the edge of the room, already sensing what was coming. They're not on the guest list, Sophia said clearly. That was all it took. Within seconds, 2 staff members approached, polite, professional, firm. Elena's voice rose immediately. This is ridiculous. You're embarrassing us. Sophia didn't flinch. You taught me how. That one landed harder than anything else. Matteo scoffed, shaking his head as he stepped back. Unbelievable, he muttered, though whether it was anger or wounded pride wasn't clear. Carlos lingered a second longer than the others. He looked at Sophia, really looked at her for the first time that night, like he was seeing something unfamiliar, or maybe something he had chosen not to see before. Then he turned and followed the others out. No apology, no final words, just exit. The doors closed behind them. And just like that, they were gone. For a moment, no one moved. Then Daniel's hand found Sophia's again. You okay? He asked quietly. Sophia exhaled, a long breath she didn't realize she'd been holding for years. Yeah, she said. And this time it was true. The reception didn't collapse. It didn't fall apart. If anything, it reset. Music slowly returned. Conversations picked back up, softer at first, then stronger. A few guests approached Sophia quietly, some with concern, some with admiration, none with judgment. Because what they had just witnessed wasn't cruelty, it was clarity. Later that night, after the dancing and the speeches and the carefully rebuilt warmth of the room, Sophia stepped outside onto the venue's balcony. Cool air. Quiet. For a second, it almost felt familiar. Like another night, years ago. A plate in her hands. Laughter inside. A door separating her from where she thought she belonged. But this time, it was different. Well, because this time she had chosen to step out. And more importantly, she could go back in whenever she wanted. The door behind her opened softly. Daniel stepped out, leaning beside her. They're really gone, he said. Sophia nodded. They've been gone for a long time. A pause, then softer. I just finally stopped waiting for them to come back. Daniel didn't respond right away. He didn't need to, because this wasn't about filling silence anymore. It was about understanding it. Sophia looked back through the glass doors. Inside, people laughed. Glasses clinked. Her friends, her chosen family, sat at tables she had built into her life piece by piece. No one was taking her seat. No one was asking her to move. No one was deciding her place for her. For the first time, the image in front of her matched something internal. Stable, whole, hers. "There was no seat for me back then," she said quietly. Daniel glanced at her. She smiled slightly. "So I built my own table." And without hesitation, she turned, opened the door, and walked back inside.